Hello YouTube, this is Annihilation and I'm back with updates. As promised, I got my new airbrush. This is an Harder than Steenbeck Infinity, which is a really nice airbrush for several reasons. For one, it comes apart better than most airbrushes. If you recall, my old airbrush had the cup permanently attached, which made cleaning it quite hard. The lever control rod here is just that little pin that's really finicky to get in and out. This has a very elegant control rod. It has an open working mechanism for the needle retraction, which is really great. This screws on and off really easily. It has a control setting in the back for maximum paint release, which you can set and release with the button in the back. It came with two different spray nozzles. It came with extra stuff, a spray protector cap, things like that. Two different size cups. I upgraded to the bigger one because, I don't know, it seemed like the right thing to do, even though you probably don't need that much for the miniatures. And despite already having run into a problem, which is not related to this thing so much as it is to the connector hose. The connector hose with the airbrush that came with the compressor, as you recall, it was a set, is supposed to be 27 millimeters, which is the standard size, I guess. But with this airbrush connector, there is a significant air leak. I was able to use it today, which was the goal. So I did do some airbrushing, but the compressor is constantly trying to get up to pressure while the air is leaking out. So it's not ideal. And I'm not super sure how to get rid of it. If you push the hose up, it did lock the airtight lock. So I'm thinking it has something to do with the O-ring not connecting to the airbrush properly. So probably the screw thread is simply not long enough for this adapter cable or whatever. So when you screw it in, if I can manage to screw it in on camera, this is as far as it goes, and there's significant play here when the air pressure is on. So not a flawless start. I don't want to blame anything. Like, I don't think it's a bad compressor. I don't think it's the airbrush's fault. I don't think they're incompatible. I have a guide in like 18 languages that I've been reading in at least 2, so I'll get to the bottom of this eventually. The standard size nozzle of the Infinity is tiny, and I consulted the manual for cleaning instructions for the airhead itself, which is the part inside the nozzle. And they're just like, yeah, just use like a needle or like a small brush and clean out the inside of that. The inside of that is like a millimeter. It's tiny. Like, I don't have a millimeter brush, which means that you're sitting there with your airbrush needle really carefully trying to get the gunk out. But realistically, that's probably going to be a contender for the ultrasonic cleaner. I am going to read up on if this particular airbrush is okay to be ultrasonically cleaned, because this one is the most expensive I've bought so far for this particular hobby. All in all, the total of resources spent is increasing rapidly, but never mind that, it's only money. Let's talk about what I did today. This is my semi-Flyrant slash Swarmlord. As you can see, the wing membranes have been airbrushed. I airbrushed it originally some sort of Cathian green, and then I went in today with a lighter green called Elysian green, which is from the Games Workshop Air Range. And then after that I went in with Flash Gits yellow, also from the GW Air Range. I'm happy with it and not happy with it. This is still just basically the undercoat, but it's going to have patterns and things like that on it. But there was some trouble spraying, particularly the yellow was intermittent flow, probably because it was too thick for that tiny hole. In addition, the flash gets yellow is lighter than you would expect. With an airbrush, you can layer it on top of the green very lightly, so this still looks, I think, quite green, which is good. But I have a different yellow, which is a slight more ochre hue. I didn't want to use it because I thought it might look dirty, but we may have to use some sort of like darker yellow or something like that. But anyway, this is the effect that I was hoping for, where the sort of the what would you call that? The limbs themselves are a lot darker than the membranes of the wings. I think that makes a lot of sense. Obviously a smooth gradation, or at least semi-smooth gradation. Front and back, if it looks like one of the wings is lighter than the other one, particularly this one being lighter than that one, that's possible, because this one got slightly more work. But all in all, I'm excited about this. Like this, it was nice to hold an airbrush again. I hadn't held one since probably early 2000s, maybe late 90s, which means that this was both nostalgic and enjoyable. The rest of the models that I have are also going to be subjected to airbrush for the most part, except for Rock Megaboss, and maybe not the Space Marines, we'll see. But this, I started with this one because these are really large, like easy to hit sections. And I felt like if I speckled, which I did a little bit here where you won't be able to see, but if you speckle on a Tyranid, that's no big deal. Whereas if you speckle on the super smooth Eldar units, then that you'll notice it. So this is the state of progress. You may expect me to do some airbrushing on camera once I get the hose thing fixed, because if I do it now, all you'd be hearing is the compressor constantly trying to keep up and the hissing noise of the leak. If you have any idea how that happened or how to fix it, please leave a comment. The whole point of this channel is for us to help each other out, me struggling through these problems, and older, wiser people telling me what I'm doing wrong. So that is the state of current progress. In addition to that, I primed my Wraith Knight. Tokyo weather, high humidity, so the primer went on quite dusty, I would say. Like, I actually went back in there with a brush and brushed off all the little fine, actually some of it's still coming off, but brushed off all the little fine dust, which made it a little bit smoother, but it's still not a smooth coat. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. The rougher coat should take paint really well as far as a primer is concerned. But I don't know. I hope that's not going to be a problem. Let's put it that way. This is in a state of semi-assembled. Like, this piece has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 different pieces all glued together already to form basically the main torso, but I feel like I can still get in here. It doesn't have any attachments. The head's not on it. The veins in the back are not on it. The little, I actually have no idea what those are. The little things that go in these 4 socket holes and this socket hole in the back are not on it. So I think this is in a good state. I even kept the connector bit for the torso, which slots in here and then into the legs like so. I kept that separate, so I can paint those separately. This model obviously lends itself to airbrushing. It's an Eldar model, they all do, I think. And it's big, so in that sense, the broad strokes with the airbrush will be a lot easier than, for example, the Wraith Guard, which I primed again. They came, if you recall, from eBay, black primed, smooth black primed, and I just dusted them from the top, as you can see, with the same grade that I use for everything else, and then the bottom, they're still very, very dark, a la Tabletop Minions, Uncle Adam's, sorry, dual tone spray technique. So that's nice. So that's ready to go. And then I did most of the components, including the ones that I'm not sure I'm going to use. So My Wraith Knight is unlikely to ever see a tabletop war game. Actually, none of these guys are going to see a war game, but for most of them, it doesn't matter because I didn't do many modifications. For the Wraith Knight, I thought it might be fun to stick all the weapons on there. That plan was flummoxed when I realized that, for example, I need the sun cannon, I need the heavy graph cannons. Okay, so these are the arm cannons, the heavy wraith cannons, I believe they're called. This body is modular, which means that this body fits the barrel of the sun cannon, which is this one. They gave you only 2 in the box, which means that if you wanted to use the sun cannon and the heavy graph cannon, which of course on the tabletop you can't. It's the sun cannon with the shield or the 2 heavy graph cannons. But for me, it's totally an option to say I'm going to use all of them, because what would have been really cool is on the torso, those 2 holes are for shoulder-mounted weapons, shuriken cannons and scatter lasers and things like that. But if you're like me and you're never going to use this thing on the tabletop, that is a tempting shoulder weapon. Basically, you turn it into mobile artillery. Put the 2 heavy graph cannons up here, have the sun cannon on the one arm and the shield on the other, or something like that. You could even use, if you felt spunky, yeah, the melee weapon, the Wraith Blade. I'm not up on the lingo. The Wraith Blade and then the sun cannon in the other arm, or something like that. To make it look as cool as possible, to use all these really cool models, these accessory bits. But yeah, that plan was flummoxed. Similarly, on the bottom of the arms, let's see where I have an arm. On the bottom of the arms, you could also potentially mount more weapons in these holes, like scatter lasers, like shuriken cannons. But you also only got 2 modular bodies for the auxiliary weapons, which means you can't use all of those either. So that's a bit of a bummer. You could, of course, get them on eBay maybe for next to nothing. Go to a local hobby store, ask if they have some, maybe get lucky. Or you can use green stuff, which I'm pretty sure I have lying around here somewhere. Yes, I do. Green stuff. This is unopened, unused. It's daunting, I think, to use this stuff. I used Super Sculpey in college to make entire elaborate projects, including I made a 3-foot flying dragon out of Super Sculpey over a metal wire armature. But the level of detail that these Games Workshop models require is high, and this stuff is different than Super Sculpey, and I haven't done it in a lot of years, and if I were to do it, I would do it on camera for you guys to see it, and frankly, yeah, it's a little daunting. It's not like I'm shy, I'm on YouTube, but I'm not sure if I'm going to do that, especially for these super intricate weapon bodies or whatever. Like on a Tyranid, you might say, okay, making some armor, like carapace armor, is not super hard, but replicating or duplicating really these weapon bodies from Sculpey is probably next to impossible for someone like me. If you are a Sculpey master, kudos to you. The community always looks forward to the things you make, I'm sure. But in the meantime, that helps me not at all. So here I am sitting at my desk wondering what the next step will be. That's it for this video. The next video hopefully will be me doing more painting on camera. Maybe the Wraith Knight, maybe the Wraith Guard, maybe some brush painting for Rock Mega Boss. Maybe more of this Flyrant / Broodlord. No, not Broodlord. I say it every time. Guys, stop me. What's he called? He's called a... Christ. For the record, I know this is a Broodlord. This one right here is a Broodlord. This is the Swarmlord. Ah, see, I'm not as dumb as I look. No, I probably am. But more of this should be fun. I also might make a video about cleaning the airbrush since I have so much cleaning stuff now gathered. And maybe you guys can let me know some tips of your own. And then I'm going to use baking soda for the Wraith Knight base, I think. Again, Uncle Adam baking soda basing technique. I have some cork board that I might want to incorporate, but I don't want to get too crazy on the bases right away. I want to make sure they can come off the base. I'm not gluing the Wraith Knight to a base, but I do want to have a base ready for posing. That's it. Thank you very much for watching. If you do want to watch me struggle, you can hit subscribe on this channel. If you think somebody else in the hobby who just started might find these things useful, please direct their attention to this YouTube channel. And if you've just turned me on because you needed some background noise, then I was glad to be of service. Don't hesitate to call upon me again. We'll see you next time. This has been Annihilation for YouTube, and I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you very much, and see you around.